everybody? Welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It is a dad chat with myself and Nate. Nate, how are you doing today, man? You told me you had a story for me.
Yeah, so I have a story. I am often trying to not seem like Mr. Can't Stop Complaining about Britain, even though I feel like complaining is the best way to show that I have assimilated into this culture.
I really think that you have fully become British because every British person I know hates Britain, except for like the really insane people.
Yeah, the super hardcore nationalists. But as Milo is often saying, that the way their nationalism manifests is so different than American nationalists, because American nationalists are always like, this is the greatest country on earth. It was created by God himself. And if you don't like it, you can fucking die. Whereas British nationalism more or less manifests that everything is good, or it was better when it was worse. It should go back to being worse, and if you don't like it, you can fuck off. Or as Milo phrases it, it's shit. It's supposed to be shit. You don't like it, you can fuck off. That's basically...
You're not supposed to be a happy British person. That's not a thing that exists. British people have always been upset and angry and dealing with stuff because complaining is really what seems to keep British people going. It's very militaristic in that way. It's really, much like the troops.
But also I would say too that there's an extent to which like some of the stuff in the environment and the politics and the society kind of encourages that like change is foreclosed and you're supposed to be kind of like chipper and twee about everything being bad. But stuff has gotten so much worse in the last 6 years since I moved here, basically. So it's all my fault. And I think certainly post COVID and then post cost of living crisis, it's just become so much worse. And I guess I have a story because I am trying to help Joe set up a studio in the Netherlands comparable to the studio that we have in London. Maybe not as big, but like similar capacity. And in some cases, I've found that if I need specialty items or equipment, or if I want to try to get secondhand equipment, sometimes it's easier to just get it in the US and ship it through a parcel forwarding service that I use. Because I've used the service in America. They're great. They've never steered me wrong. And, no reason to have a problem. Whereas like less success with things like that in Europe. But the one in America that forwards stuff to me here, they're great. So I did that like I've done many a time and I've never had a problem. But Royal Mail, the not nationalized, is sort of like, imagine if they had privatized the US Postal Service. That's Royal Mail. And they privatized it like in 2011 or 2012 or something. It's recent. They were the carrier basically once it arrived in Britain. It was sent by DHL and then like subcontracted, you clear customs, and then it got shipped to me by Royal Mail. So they have done this to me in the past, and they did it again after not having a problem for a while, where the sorting office near the studio just arbitrarily says, I know, it's undeliverable. There's something wrong with the address. There's nothing wrong with the address. They deliver there all the time. And in fact, when we ship merchandise, I call them and schedule a pickup, and they send someone with a van to pick up all the parcels. Like, they know the address is fine. It's right in their system. It's fine.
They know how to find you.
So on a Friday afternoon, they received it and said, nope, undeliverable, return to sender. And then they didn't answer the phone on Saturday when I saw this. I wasn't able to get in touch until Monday. I filed a complaint or an inquiry. The sorting office didn't respond to Royal Mail Business Customer Support about the inquiry. After 3 days had elapsed and they hadn't responded, they're like, okay, we need to file a complaint. Filed a complaint. It came back with, oh, well, the address was incomplete. And the woman on the line even was like, that's nonsense. Like, the address is fine. It's in the system. It's fine. They can't put a hold on a parcel in the Royal Mail system. They can't. So you have to call the sorting office who's got it and hope they still have it. They typically only take calls between 8 and 10 a.m., some days per week.
Some days.
Typically 1 day per week, they're also open from like 4 to 6 p.m. That's it. When you call them, you can expect to wait 90 minutes. I called this office and it came up, I waited, it said wait time is over 40 minutes. About 40 minutes in, it just hung up on me. And then I had to go and do a trash future recording, so I couldn't be on the phone for it. So it got returned to sender, but it didn't get returned to sender in America. It got returned to sender in some random ass warehouse that no one seems to know who it is. It's some depot for a subcontractor, I think, called Yun Express, which is a Chinese company, and you can't call them. If you email them, they don't respond. Their Trustpilot review is like 0.5 stars. The address, if you Google it, nothing comes up, but it's nothing but 1-star reviews of people being like, I've basically been defrauded. The phone number listed on Companies House, the British business registration site, is just some random guy's cell phone. It's just a bullshit number. So I have been trying to get a hold of someone who can help. And at this point, called DHL numerous times and basically got told to fuck off because I'm not the shipper. I called the shipper. They're like, this sounds fucked up. We're going to look into it. They contacted their account manager. The account manager hasn't responded to them. They probably ship hundreds of thousands of parcels a year. So you're like, what the fuck?
Right.
Royal Mail still hasn't heard back from Bethnal Green from the delivery office. I escalated the complaint. We'll see if I get a response. I thought of this last night because I was so annoyed by this, I couldn't sleep. And I was like, okay, maybe I can just make them, because if I try to call the delivery office that handled the return to sender, if I even get through, they'll tell me to fuck off. Every British institution, their job is to mash a big red button that says fuck off. But I thought maybe if I can strong arm Royal Mail business and be like, can you just call them yourself and be like, send a guy and get the fucking parcel. Like, just grab it. Like, it was delivered by mistake. This is you're acknowledging the delivery problem, the address problem is complete nonsense. So get the parcel and then at least secure it. Because right now, no one knows where it is. It's been 6 days and DHL doesn't know where it is. I just called the customs clearance people. They don't know where it is. Royal Mail doesn't know where it is, other than they dropped it off in this random ass fucking place. No one is responding. And Yon Express doesn't respond to emails apparently. And people have said, like, I had a parcel that was supposed to be delivered by them and it got held for like over 3 months and then disappeared. So I have spent between the cost of the items and the customs clearance and the shipping, like well over £1,000 on this. It is insured, but like, who's going to pay it?
Right. Like, who fucked up here?
It's not my fault. The address is fine. They acknowledge the address is fine. I literally was shipping Lions stuff. I think I said this earlier, but I was shipping Lions stuff and I did an ad hoc collection, which is when you call and they have a person come in a van. They showed up at the place because the address is real from the same delivery office as fucking the people who refused it. This happened before. This happened in December where a guy was doing a domestic shipment to me and they were like, so their call center's in the north. I don't know if it's some thing, but British customer service, they seem to have this notion that Southern English people find Northern accents reassuring. So it's sort of like when you call customer service in America and the call center is in like, I don't know, Mississippi or Alabama or something. I don't find those accents reassuring because it doesn't matter what regional accent you have. It's still a person who's annoying and condescending and giving you wrong information. Basically like very smugly lecturing you completely wrong information. Like, I don't have it in me because it's just like, I need to be polite and not to fuck this up. You know what I mean? Like, if I give them any reason to say this person is abusive or this person's a dickhead, then they just stop helping me. Deep down, I want to be like, I don't know if this is supposed to sound charming, but every one of you, I just feel like I'm being lectured by like Jimmy Savile's grandma. I'm just so fucking tired of this. But anyway, when it happened in December, there was something wrong with the return address. And so they're like, no, it's going to go to our undeliverable black site in Belfast, which is in Northern Ireland across the Irish Sea. They have a illegal detention site because every British institution has to have one. And they were like, no, sir, basically very condescendingly, like, you dumb piece of shit moron American, you stupid yank. It's undeliverable because the address is fucked up, even though if we acknowledge the address isn't fucked up, and it's illegal for us to intervene if it's been declared undeliverable. It's gonna go to the black site. And then randomly, on a Saturday morning, I get a text like, oh, actually, it's being delivered today. And I was like, fuck. So I rushed and got delivered. It was fine. So obviously, nothing wrong with the address. Anyway, they never asked me to fix anything, so I presumed things were fine until it happened again. And so this time, it's like, no matter what they say, like, even if they're like, oh no, we can't retrieve it, it's out of our hands. Like, if it does wind up getting solved by Royal Mail, I presume it's going to be a guy who's going to drive down their Royal Mail van and just grab it.
Right. Drive across the Irish Sea to the black site and pull it out.
Well, no, this one, at this depot near Wolverhampton, which is near Birmingham, like in the Midlands. It's about 150 miles from here. Wolverhampton.
Wolverhampton.
Yeah, it's a relatively small city in the greater Birmingham area. Birmingham's like an hour and some change by train from here. It's probably like 100-ish miles. But it might be a different planet because England is very densely populated. They have a very different accent in the Midlands, so it's a whole thing. Like Ozzy Osbourne's accent, he's from Birmingham.
I thought that was drugs.
I mean, it is drugs too, but people from Birmingham who are teetotalers sound like that. So anyway, I am hoping that common sense prevails. But at this point, like, I thought the worst case scenario was, I was like, well, if I don't stop it, it's going to get sent back to America and I have to pay to reship it. Now I'm like, well, fuck, if that happens, at least they've got it.
Yeah, at least you know where it's at then.
I don't know if they've stolen it, if someone's going to steal it, like, genuinely.
See a bunch of Lions merch show up in China suddenly.
It's a good digital mixer that was being sold secondhand by someone who didn't know the value of the thing they had, because it was slightly scratch and dent, but it works fine. Like, all the diagnostics are fine. It just, has been in and out of a rack unit. So like, it's got some scratches, but whatever, who cares? And some this is very funny, some hybrid fiber USB-C cables that I would happily buy in Britain if I could, but no one distributes them except for one company that has a different brand. I tried to buy from them last year. You need to have a trade account. They wouldn't respond to my emails when I was requesting it. And I called their phone number and it just went to voicemail. Like, no one in Britain wants to do their job, even when they have a direct incentive to make more money that way. Like, it feels like they would rather be able to say, no, fuck you, even when like it actually hurts their bottom line. It's the strangest thing, man. Like the default mode here is them just talking down to you. And they talk down to each other, and I think they all just find that normal. Whereas like for me, it's just sort of like, but I'm not being rude, and I have a valid reason to ask this question. And like we have all established clear as day that I did not do anything wrong, and neither did the shipper. This is just your guys just fucking going off on one, and then not answering your emails or phone calls when you're like, hey, please respond. This is time sensitive. And they're like, no, fuck you, I won't. I'm like, that's literally your own employees. Like, I understand that as a customer, even as a business customer, there's no fucking way anyone's going to respond to me. They don't give a shit about me. But when it's like their internal thing where it's like, hey, like this is eventually going to get escalated to a thing where like it could become a problem. It's like, nah, fuck you. But then I have to remind myself that Royal Mail deployed this shitty software in the 90s for account keeping that created fake discrepancies, and then they wound up charging people all this money for fake discrepancies, and like a bunch of people went to prison for it, like for completely bullshit reasons. Like a number of people committed suicide. Like it's horrible, and it's only recently been agreed upon. Like they're settling it out and stuff. Like it's been settled out of court, but like this took decades, and they knew from the beginning this was a problem. But like they wanted to have this contract with Fujitsu, even though the software was bad, and the software would literally push updates overnight, so you wouldn't even know it had updated, and then it would fuck your reconciliation, and you had to use the system to run a post office, because the post office and Royal Mail are two separate companies, as I have learned, and they can't talk to each other. Because when you go to a post office, they put something in Royal Mail and Royal Mail picks it up, but it's a different company. And also apparently Royal Mail can't talk to Royal Mail either, because fuck you.
I'm glad one of the things that when you live in America that you get is that all of the shit is here, at least. Like I never have to worry about cables. I never have to worry about, can I get the right thing? The only thing I have to worry about, though, is that Amazon has gone completely to shit. Everything is like a badly photoshopped picture. You never know what you're getting anymore. So it seems to be a crapshoot anytime you're ordering anything off of Amazon at this point.
Amazon is okay here. One of the things that's interesting, though, is that they've definitely subcontracted a lot of the deliveries, and sometimes it can be really shady. One time I saw people doing Amazon deliveries, and it was just a random van, and there was like probably an 11 or 12-year-old kid in the back, like sorting the parcels and handing them to the adult that was taking them to the door. And I was just like, it was in the middle of the school year too. I was just like, this, what? Like,
it's homeschooling, baby. That's good. You're probably learning, I don't know what I would as a homeschooler, I don't know how I would categorize sorting mail, but I'm sure we could figure out some way to write that down properly.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to get a lawyer now, huh?
Well, I basically am going to have to, if they don't resolve this, I'm going to have to file what's called a letter before a claim, which basically I'm giving them notice that like, I'm going to file a civil claim if you do not address this. And I have to give them a suspense and use some legalese. And I have lots of friends who are lawyers who can help.
We'll fly carry out. We'll have them put on one of those white wigs for you.
Oh, the barrister wig or what?
Where's my customer shit?
But I do have to find a lawyer who can actually follow through on the threat, which is also a problem because my friends who are lawyers are typically corporate lawyers. And so they don't do this kind of work. And unfortunately, finding a random, law office who's willing to help you, it's like, much like every other business in Britain, you've got to hope that if you contact them, it's not A, a scam, or B, they're just like, it goes straight to voicemail and the voicemail is full. Mm-hmm. Because like, that's one thing that you find funny is a lot of places where they've paid to have their businesses top ranked on Google, they don't respond. They aren't actually interested in doing business. So it's almost impossible to find someone to respond, like who wants to do a job. Like I do know some people because of the accountant firm that we use for our various businesses. They have a law firm in the Midlands they work with, and they seem pretty sharp. So I'm going to talk to them and see. But basically, I need to write this letter, but I also need to be prepared to have to file a claim because I need to get it back. And even if I get it, I need them to guarantee to put down in writing that either the address is fine and there is nothing wrong with it, and as written, so their system does not have the excuse to pull this shit on us randomly. Or if it's wrong, tell me what needs to be fixed so I can fix it, because I'll happily do that. I also need, preferably, some point of contact of who it is I need to talk to, who will actually answer their boss's emails or phone calls, I guess, to be like, if this happens again. Because it's just like, when we had to have some of the messed up sizes for Lions shirts returned, I used that same service, the parcel consolidation service in America. Basically, that way people in the US didn't have to pay out of pocket for international shipping, because like, it's gotten way expensive to ship here.
It's so fucking
insanely,
pricey.
It's gotten so much more.
My apologies to anybody who orders from the store that's overseas. I have to put like a $19 shipping on there, and that barely covers it.
It's about the same for us to ship to the US and to Canada. And the thing that's crazy about it is, it didn't used to be this bad. It's actually often cheaper to ship to Australia and faster than shipping to the US. But the thing that really blows my mind about it is, recently it's happened to me where I found for some reason they'll say, okay, well, international tracked is actually cheaper, and that's fine, but that's still at least like $18. But international standard, which, you know, quite frankly, to the US, you're lucky if it's there within 2 weeks. That's now like $21 for anything, unless we can pack the shirts into like the UK large letter size. But even then, it's still $11, $12 to ship to the US. Whereas to ship in the UK, for example, domestic, it would be like $3, and to ship to Europe, it would be like $9. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we did a merch drop for TF, my brother ordered stuff in Seattle, and a friend of mine ordered stuff on the South Island of New Zealand in a town that only gets post delivered twice a week. And my friend in New Zealand got their stuff before my brother did. On the South Island, so not even the major hub, like literally as far on planet Earth as you can be from England, unless you go to like the Chatham Islands off the coast of New Zealand. And they got it faster than Seattle, which has a direct flight, is a huge logistics hub and has a direct flight to London that leaves like 5 times a day.
All right, look, our postal here in America has gone absolutely to shit. Somebody on the Discord was very kind and sent me a really nice joystick setup because I wanted to start, you know, getting back into X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and some other stuff and maybe do some streaming. And he sent me this thing, and like normally if you send a box of something, it takes a week. Like 5 business days is generally what I expect any large box to take. And this thing took like 2 weeks. And when I'm shipping out of the store, every once in a while, somebody's just like, why does it cost so much for shipping to send me just 2 stickers? And the thing is, that's how I have tracking. And that's how I can tell you where it's coming, because Lord knows the postal service will lose shit constantly, or it'll just get lost in the ether somewhere. And I'm just like, I can at least say, look, I can see it, and give it like a couple of more days. If it doesn't show up, then you can have it. If I do that with just a stamp, it's not going to do anything. Like, I'm not going to have that.
Yeah, I would say one thing you could do, I don't know if you can do this from your system because it's annoying to have to go to the post office, is you can send stuff letter mail with a delivery confirmation sticker. I used to do that in the US, but I don't know like if that's a service they offer. Here in the UK, weirdly, like mail is very fast, and delivery in general, whether it's Royal Mail or it's by third-party distributor, is fast. E-commerce in general is pretty good here. Like web design is bad, but e-commerce fulfillment is actually pretty good. I've had some amazing instances. Cynthia does too, where she'll order something and she'll get it in like 12 hours. I one time ordered off eBay. I bought a outdoor like wok burner from a specialty gas manufacturer in, I want to say in Bradford, which is in the north of England. It's as far from here as Providence, Rhode Island is from New York. And I ordered it like 3 p.m. on like a Thursday, and I got it at like 9:30 a.m. the next day. And it's like, that just simply wouldn't happen in America. I don't even think I think I had free shipping. I genuinely think the shipping was included in the price. That was the crazy thing. Because like when I was back home in Indiana in October of 2022, there's a brand of exercise clothing that I like for running, and it's American. They don't have distributors in Europe. And so I just figured, okay, well, I'll just buy some, have it shipped to my parents' place, and it'll be here in time for me to, before I have to fly home or fly back to England. I bought it before I left, and I was in America for 2 weeks, and it got there the morning of, like, as I was getting ready to go to the airport to fly back to New York and then onward to London. Like, genuinely, it took almost 2 weeks. Now, I think I used a free shipping option, and it was shipping from California, but I wouldn't have expected it to take 2 weeks.
No.
And that to me, so that was a shocker. I remember stuff being like hit or miss in America. Like you knew some vendors were really good and you'd get stuff fast, and some took forever. But like, I think the whole Louis DeJoy fucking up postal voting stuff and whatever they did, like they definitely screwed with carriage fees for international stuff. And that's why it's so slow and so expensive. But man, it's crazy to me how bad, because like when we first started shipping Trash Future merch, we were doing it in fully manually. Like we had one of those little payment devices, and if someone wanted to buy a shirt, we would email them a payment link and we'd like handwrite the label and send it. Now we have a much more integrated system, and we're probably going to we may switch to like using a fulfillment partner, because like doing the logistics all ourselves is a nightmare. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, and I'm a one-person operation, and like I always think like, oh, I'd love to scale up, I'd love to do more, but like I already have to spend a lot of time doing shipping.
Yeah,
I'm rebuilding my shipping area downstairs too, so that's a big, between my shipping and then like where I do all of my art stuff, it's all kind of in the same area, and it's a fucking hot mess at the moment.
I mean, there's nothing better than if you can actually redesign a thing with like good racking shelves and like have it sorted. Like that makes me feel so much more organized. But I still have so much to do at our studio to like really get it.
Yeah.
It's a lot better than it was before, but I still have so much to do.
We have a 1-year plan of redoing our basement to have like one side be storage and the other side be kind of a family area. But I finally got one of those, I don't even know what to call it. Like it's like a shelf locker thing. You open it up and it's got different shelf. I finally got one of those, and like all of my art stuff goes in there. And I was using folding tape, these 2 6-foot-long folding tables as my shipping area. And we bought a U-shaped desk that I have to put together and get that in place and everything. But I'm getting to a place where it's going to be better eventually. It just takes a lot of time. And then there's the rest of the basement that has to be done too. We want to put flooring and all this other stuff. Got a real dad job ahead of me over the next year or so.
Yeah, we had some renovations done, to install stuff downstairs to build the soundproofed enclosure at the studio and then to have like a bathroom installed down there. I'm getting the impression that some of the work, I mean, like it's solid, but like the finishes aren't great. And like some things are starting to get a little rickety after only 3 years. And it's like, I don't know if I need to bring somebody else in, if I know anybody reliable, because it's so hard to find a builder, a commercial builder who isn't bad. I was thinking about this though, because you're talking about merch stuff. November from Trash Future and Well, There's Your Problem said that they all got tired of dealing with all of the various fulfillment things, and they found like a good quality drop shipper in America, and they're selling Well, There's Your Problem merch that way. And like, man, it would be nice, but there just isn't that kind of like, I have not found a good drop shipper in Europe that doesn't do shit quality. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm thinking we may do is see if we can find a reasonably priced option to do a fulfillment partnership where someone handles the packing and the picking and shipping, and we just ship bulk inventory to them and they do it, because like we can do it ourselves, but it becomes such a logistical nightmare. Having been the one to process, 575 orders, for a grand total of like over 1,000 shirts in one big drop, like it's just so much work. It takes up so much space. There's so many opportunities for things to go wrong.
This is a big reason why I don't do shirts right now. And if I do ever get around to doing shirts, it's going to be because I finally bought a t-shirt press myself and I'm doing them in my basement, because I don't want to deal with like shitty quality shirts. I don't want to have something that's like, I have no control over this. I don't get to see it before you see it, because there are plenty of times when I will, if I'm doing a patch or something, or if I'm doing pins, I'm checking to make sure that I'm not sending you something that's like fucked up. And I don't want that with a drop shipper. I'm very like, when it comes to our merch, I'm very anal retentive about making sure that I'm sending out something.
Protective might be the right
Protective, yeah. I'm protective about it. It's not a big thing, but it is mine. So, I want it to be good.
I mean, I know that we could probably have a lot more revenue from it with TF stuff if it was like constantly selling. We'd have to relinquish some control. I think the thing that we've got is we have a good merch manufacturer. Like we have a business in Bristol that we work with that does screen printing and other stuff. Tom uses them for Beneath the Skin. We use them for Lions as well. They just do good quality stuff. We can choose the base stock shirt. Like they've got really nice quality ones. The screen printing is very high quality. And so there's a part of me that's sort of like, I wouldn't want to give up the ability to at least choose. So I wouldn't want to do with drop shipping, but I am thinking that maybe we should start sourcing like potentially someone who can like a fulfillment partner, because like another problem that we have, and this is so funny because once again, Royal Mail, I think this is a Royal Mail problem. If you're not a high volume shipper, like I think you have to ship at least 1,000 or 2,000 packages a year. And we're not at that point. You can't be on the full like business platform, like business account, but you have a small business thing called click and drop. The problem is Royal Mail refuses to do any kind of API integration for point of sale systems for hosting platforms. And there is one that actually Tom found. Shopify finally has one. And that's what we use for the Lions site. So we're able to do it and import labels automatically, which is amazing. Because for TF and up until this point for Lions, because there's no API to transmit that address data for each order into the Royal Mail system, we were having to export all of it as CSV, scrub it to match what Royal Mail needed, re-import it, and then do it manually. And there's so many opportunities for things to go wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so stressful and time consuming. Just being able to just, like, we have the CRM platform, we have the point of sale system, just being able to integrate. Like, it's still a little clunky, but it's just so much better than it was before. And it's like Trash Future, when we had our site, originally we had someone set it up for us and they hosted it on Wix. And then we were like, there's a lot of stuff about Wix and the bullshit they do with helping support the Israeli security state and their specific IT shit as regards to pressing Palestinians. And so we're like, we can't in good faith have a Wix site. So we migrated it to Squarespace. Great. Squarespace doesn't have this fucking integration. Shopify does, so we might need to migrate it again. Hilariously, that's less onerous now because of me having had to set up that manual email server. Just to make my stupid all-in-one scanner work, I had to set up an email server. And now I know that stuff. I'm a little more familiar with DNS registration things. And so it's like, if we have to do it, we'll do it. It's actually not that hard. I've gotten pretty good at Shopify. But it's just like, maybe this is the same in America. I think a lot of things have gotten worse everywhere. And in some places in America, it feels like the guardrails are fully off. But I think in Britain, the fact that everyone just sort of is like, well, it's supposed to be shit. What can you do? And anyway, like, it's just everyone's going to be a dickhead to you and tell you you're a moron. I don't even want the customer to always be right, but I kind of would like the business to not always be wrong. You know what I mean? Yeah. In the sense, not of me saying, oh, poor small business owners, but rather as a customer, the business I'm dealing with is always giving me fucking wrong information. And then me as the business, as a business customer of these bigger platforms, also like, no, fuck you, we can't help you. But also like, there is no alternative. No other, like, you can't use any other system, whether that's payment processing or that's, the way we get paid out from stuff like Patreon, or whether that's up until this thing with Shopify. It's like, well, there just was no program anywhere. No host, web hosting service had a plugin that let you interface with this Royal Mail system. So it's like, nah, fuck you. Suffer. Do it like you're doing data entry in COBOL in 1980, because fuck you. It's just agonizing, man.
Let's shift gears. I have a question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
I need a little help. So we do vendor events, and we have a vendor event that's coming up, and the theme of it is I love the 2000s. And you and I are of an age where we remember the 2000s, and my wife and I were kind of stretching our brains on like, what kind of things are I love the 2000s? And I was thinking more, myself, I think Homestar Runner, I think all of the goofy internet memes that were really big in like the mid-aughts and stuff. But like, you're of that era too. Like, if you're going to make buttons or something like that, what would some of the I love the 2000s kind of be for you? What do you remember of the 2000s? Like, I kept just thinking like, well, what am I going to make, 9/11 buttons? Like, no, gotta make something.
Make a button that says, have you ever seen Donnie Darko?
Yeah. I put the Donnie Darko thing on there. What else we were thinking about Rob Zombie stuff, but I think that's 90s. That's more 90s.
White Zombie was his first thing that he got really famous for, and then he did solo stuff, but like Dragula, Living Dead Girl, stuff like that, that was still late 90s. That was like 98, 99, I think.
I do have a Live, Laugh, Love of Dragula, which is live through the ditches, laugh through the witches, love through the in the back of my Dragula.
Yeah. I would say, I'm thinking about some of the kind of like new metal bands that got popular. I mean, really, when you think about it, Korn broke through big time in like 98, early 99. Yeah. Same with Limp Bizkit.
But they were still big in the 2000s, though.
I would say early 2000s is when all of those bands reached their peak. Obviously, their fans stayed loyal, but in terms of them being on the radio and being on MTV, your Stained, Static X, Slipknot, bands like that, that's like early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Something that came out in the very early 2000s that is, I think, indicative of the era is System of a Down album Toxicity that has Chop Suey on it, which is just like, hey, have you heard this really annoying song, Chop Suey? I was also thinking, like,
I understand the love that people have for System of a Down. It's not for me.
Well, it's just funny because I remember encountering their band name on like, this showing my age, on FTP servers where people were like hosting MP3 versions of albums in like pre-Napster era, and then like right around the Napster era too. Because I was 14, almost 15, I think, or maybe 15 when I first used Napster. I'd see System of a Down and like, who is this? And then I think I was watching MTV2 and I saw the video for the song Sugar. And I was just sort of like, what are these guys so mad about? Like, that was my vibe off them. So, I mean, what's really funny, dude, to be honest with you, is if you really want a 2000s vibe, I'd say, I think you have to look at some kinds of like cultural products or things talking about trends, and it's going to be broken down by era in a lot of ways.
All Homestar Runner first.
I mean, Homestar Runner, that's pretty early 2000s, isn't it?
It started on 2000, January 1st, 2000, and was big through that first decade. A lot of movies too. Let's see, 2004 we have Downfall. I can make some Hitler button.
But Downfall was a German movie. It just happened to be an internet meme thing. I don't think it became an internet meme until later.
Yeah,
I would
until
say for
much later.
2000s, if you want to...
Collateral came out in 2004, though.
It sure did. I would say internet memes in the 2000s of the movies, they were pulling from mega hard to constantly make references to the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yes, Lord of the Rings, definitely.
Internet memes featuring Lord of the Rings stuff. That's a big one. One does not simply walk into Gondor, that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Share the load. Yeah, I gotcha.
Or Mordor. One does not simply walk into, like, the Horn of Gondor. One does not simply walk into Mordor. Yeah, I was on the Something Awful forum starting in 2002.
I could make some Something Awful buttons.
I mean, yeah, well, Lotax is dead, so he can't sue you because he killed himself in a spat over child support. He was a piece of shit, so I don't feel bad saying that. What else? Yeah, I mean...
Remember, this is also that time with the, like, really, like, Wedding Crashers, Waiting, 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Hangover.
Yeah, all those, like, really kind of frat guy comedies came out during that time.
Van Wilder is a big one. Yeah, that's an early one.
Yeah, Van Wilder.
And then you have to look into late 2000s stuff, too. I mean, obviously, yeah, was it Judd Apatow stuff like Superbad or Pineapple Express? Mm-hmm. That's getting into the late 2000s. I mean... It's interesting to me because it's like, yeah, a decade spans a lot of time. So, you know, go figure. But I think about it, you know, I started January 1st, 2000. I was a freshman in high school. And January 1st, 2010, I was deployed to Afghanistan. So, yeah, big span there. Let me think. Early 2000 stuff, if you want a big vibe.
A lot of Chuck Norris
jokes, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say there's a documentary about Napster. And it has so much footage from the time, from like news reports about college kids are downloading music and stuff like that. And like the Metallica court stuff. And it's just, there's so much aesthetic of like the dorm rooms with the guys with like the backwards ball caps and the CRT monitors in your dorm room. And like I've seen Zoomers and people doing things kind of like trying to do sort of like nostalgia aesthetic about it, but it's always wrong. Like there's always some anachronisms. I remember the one about like the sort of, it was a posed photo, but it's like the hot girlfriend with pink hair or whatever, like in the bedroom with all of these like N64 games and stuff. And it's like, well, the music posters on the wall are a mishmash and some of them are just out of date. Some of them are too early, some are too late. We didn't have hair dye that was that bright back then. You just had to dye your hair over and over again. Like there's just things about it that seemed wrong. And it's like, okay, the person has like if I'm correct, they have like anime figurines, but quite frankly, like you had to be a special kind of nerd in the late 90s, early 2000s to be like really into anime figurines. And they weren't as widely accessible, like to buy them online and stuff. And like where in America, I mean, outside of huge major cities, could you even find them?
So a couple of other ones. You're the Man Now, Dog was a 2005.
Yeah. Which is, what was it? Finding Forrester, I think is the line where Sean Connery's character goes, "You're the man now, dog." And like that became a big, long, dumb joke.
What? Leroy Jenkins was 2005.
Yeah, Leroy Jenkins. So that's, because that was from playing what? Like, was it Ultima Online or Diablo?
No, that was Warcraft.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, World of Warcraft. That was that was big. The Numa, the Long Cat. There's a lot of memes that I've never. Over 9,000 was a big one too. Dragostad
in Tay, the Numa song. It's very funny to me because I went to college with a guy who was Romanian American from the Chicago suburbs. And since that band were Romanian, the song's in Romanian, like it was a hit.
What's the band?
The band is called Ozone.
Ozone,
and then Haiduki were like a band that basically, like, if I remember correctly, that literally means like robbers in Romanian. They basically just did like a version of the song without asking permission and also put it out as a single. But it's just funny because my friend, his name was Christian, he knew about that song and was like playing because his family members were playing it. It was already popular in Romania. So like, I remember it being a joke amongst our friend group before it became this huge meme thing just because we happened to know a single Romanian. Yeah, that was, or the dumb internet memes like the Star Wars kid, like the lightsaber kid or whatever, you know. Mm-hmm. But I think also it's like meme became like such a catch-all term because in the early 2000s on forums, they called them image macros. They didn't call them memes.
Yeah.
And that's like your Something Awful thing, like top text, bottom text, picture, that kind of a thing. You know, I remember seeing one that I thought was really funny, you know, where it was a snowy field with like a tent and someone had photoshopped in a really bad Photoshop of a $1 price tag and it says, "Now is the winter of our discount tent."
Discount tent.
Yeah, stuff like that. But then it's like, that's the precursor to I Can Has Cheeseburger. And then like when video started to be more shareable. Oh, I got one for you. Fensler film G.I. Joe PSAs.
Oh, God, yeah. Who wants a body massage?
Pork chop sandwiches, yeah. Who wants a body massage? Hey, what the fuck are you kids doing on my fucking lawn? Don't look at me when I'm talking to you. Yeah. I mean, like I was in college in the early 2000s. I started college in '03 and graduated in '07. And there's also some stuff that hasn't really aged well, like I'm the Juggernaut bitch, which now if you go back, there's just more than a handful of very uncomfortable, unironic rape jokes in that. Like I don't think it would have been seen as funny or it gotten as far.
And then they put that in a movie too.
They did. Yeah, fucking X-Men movie. Yeah, that's really lame, isn't it? I think that's the thing, is that some of the stuff starts to bleed into things, and by the time you get Twitter and then Vine in the early 2010s, the video content stuff starts to become so much more popular. But like, to watch the original Star Wars kid video, you had to like go on someone's forum who linked to the file and probably did an image host of a screenshot and download it from there and as a file on your computer and react to it. So the ability for stuff to get around the world was harder.
When I was in Afghanistan in '04 and I was working the overnight shift for a couple of months, I would be downloading over the Nippernet episodes of Red versus Blue so I could watch it. I don't think YouTube was really a thing yet. So like
YouTube came out in, I want to say '05 or '06, but like it wasn't, I want to say I'm the Juggernaut bitch was probably the first thing where someone shared me a YouTube link.
Yeah.
And it was like early days on YouTube.
2004 is the Dean Scream. Howard Dean.
Oh yeah, Howard Dean. Yeah, I remember that. What else?
I'm gonna do the Red Ring of Death too for the Xbox. That was Xbox 360. Like there was a run of the hardware just ended up fucking dying on you, and when you would turn it on, it had 4 segments in the circle, and you get 3 of them as red, and it was called the Red Ring of Death because it meant just general hardware failure, and there was nothing you could do about it.
Yeah, see, I never had an Xbox.
Yeah, I had that happen to me while I was in Iraq.
Oh, Three Doors Down wrote a song about this exact phenomenon.
Yeah, and then they came to Iraq and sang it. Also, a lot of the Lazy Town. Apparently, Lazy Town there's a lot of memes.
The kids show, yeah, it was like a Icelandic kids show, but like it was something. It's a piece of cake to bake a cake or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like that song. Yeah.
Oh, the Flying Spaghetti Monster was 2005.
The Flying Spaghetti Monster stuff refers to a thing that was like the purview of really annoying early 90s internet, like Gen Xers and such, and it became the most distilled annoying atheism kind of thing ever. There's a whole story about this lady who's insane on various social media platforms, and I won't shout out her name because she's just an awful person, but like she basically refused to give up the shtick about the Flying Spaghetti Monster during a child custody hearing and like lost custody of her kids. Like it's really fucked up. A lot of it is just like the judge being like, "Man, please stop fucking doing this," and she wouldn't. And it's just one of those things where that, to me, every time I think of Flying Spaghetti Monster, I always think of like all of the dumb internet atheism stuff. And it's not a knock on atheism. It's just like,
I'm an atheist, but you don't have to be fucking annoying.
Well, it's like you talked about this on our Midwestology episode that we did with Hussein and with Joe, that like trying to watch Bill Maher's Irreligious, and I came into it with an open mind because I'd say atheist is definitely closer than, observant religious on my part. But I turned it off after 10 minutes because he was just such a jackass. Yeah. He was just such a jackass to people. That's the attitude you've got to cop. Then I don't know. That's yeah. I mean, some of the cultural stuff from the 2000s, I gotta say, has not aged well at all. I think overt the homophobia and transphobia, like as punchlines, they seem very shocking now because like it's sort of like saying the word gay is apparently the joke, and I didn't have to make a joke.
The 2000s were really full of that, and it's and really a lot of the older stuff. Like I think I watched 16 Candles like a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. The main character, the good guy, uses the F slur at somebody. Like, no, that's just what we say because it's the 1980s and we can say that. And yeah, you can definitely tell that some of these things are products of their time, and we don't want to bring those necessarily forward. Like Leroy Jenkins will always be a timeless classic of the jackass who runs in and fucks everything up. But yeah, the I'm the Juggernaut bitch, if it was just I'm the Juggernaut bitch, fine. But all the rest of it that went with it was... And
I got a bitch with me, we're going to have a rape party. Yeah, like it's... Yeah.
It's not great.
It's not great. No. I would say, too, thinking about this stuff, like, I one time was going through, because I told you about my grandfather's book collection, and that, like, there was a cutout of one of the political cartoons one of my uncles had done for his college newspaper at, like, I think UNC Charlotte, but it might have been another UNC campus. It may have been whatever. I don't want to say... I can't remember the tech school, because he was an engineer. But he did these political, like, not even political cartoons, like comic strips. And, like, it was just, like, the punchline was just homophobic. But, like, this was 1971, I suppose. So it's like, I'm not saying, or 1970, that's too early. Probably 74, 75. So it's not necessarily like, oh, of its time. It's just more like, oh, yeah, like a college newspaper could just publish a thing where, like, the point is just saying the F slur and that's it. I wish I had it though, because it's like surreal. Like it's one of those things where you can imagine someone scanning it and making one of those like insane Japanese death metal shirts. Like just yeah, sadly I don't think I'll ever get it.
Our friend Tom from MySpace and All Your Base Are Belong to Us are two big ones too. Yeah,
I'm embarrassed that I forgot about All Your Base, but to be honest with you, that's
because you had a shirt.
My brother got a silk screen press and made All Your Base shirts, and people at school asked me where they could buy them, and I sold them to them, long sleeves for $20 in the year 2000.
That's not bad.
All 24 years ago. Yeah,
and think now you're doing it now, but with Trash Future stuff, I guess.
Well, I mean, right, but it's less of a directly just taking a meme and selling it, and more of a podcast bit that becomes inscrutably tied to the lore, and then we make a shirt out of it. Like, what if your robot was just a guy? What if you could post from your brain? What if your phone was the cops? What else would we have?
What if an Italian was Scandinavian?
What if a Swedish guy was Italian?
Yeah.
Along those lines. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of something. Oh, Girl Talk. Do you remember Girl Talk?
Oh, yeah, Girl Talk.
That would be back when it was like really considered de rigueur as a white person to just be like, I hate rap. I don't listen to rap. Rap's awful. It's not music, blah, blah, blah. And then this goofy dude from Pennsylvania, who I've seen live, and actually they shut the concert down after like 10 minutes because he had everyone get on stage and the venue kicked us out. So my friend invited him to a house party and he came. So I just hung out with the dude. This is Greg
Michael Gillis.
Greg Gillis, yeah. And Greg was walking around the party bullshitting with us, drinking from a bottle of Jack Daniels, and then slept in his shitty old Honda and drove back to Pittsburgh the next morning. Like he was like, because he had to go back to his job on Monday morning as like a chemical engineer.
That's rock and roll right
when
there.
When he made the first Girl Talk tapes, he was literally doing them by splicing tape by hand. I realized now what was he doing when I saw his stuff on stage, because I got up on stage when he said I want to get on, and he was using an early version of Ableton to just trigger those samples. Like he was freestyling. He was literally, it wasn't a pre-recorded thing. He was literally freestyling. He knew like the pattern of how to do it, but the Ableton controllers, either they weren't out yet or he didn't have one. He was literally mouse clicking it the whole time. And it sounded great.
He invites everybody up on the stage and was like, yeah, we're going to rock out with Girl Talk. And Nate's up there is like, what kind of mixing hardware are you using here?
I was already pretty hammered, just getting down dancing. But I remember seeing the gray kind of columns and like the different colored icons. And I remember like, what is that? And I realized now in retrospect, I'm just noticing in retrospect now because I use Ableton. That's what he was using. He had all of his samples in Ableton, and he must have done is that for individual songs, he would have had them pitched to be, to match each other, to beat match, and then he would just trigger them. It's very funny because you think about like the songs, it's important that you can dance to them and that there's a steady beat, and that like he was literally just doing mouse clicks to do it the whole time. Like that's a pretty work intensive way to perform, but yeah, man. Yeah.
All right, good. I got a lot of good ideas here. We got some plans. I've got less than a week to throw some stuff together, but I think I'll make some buttons.
Because you start out with early 2000s, you start out with the very early stuff like, Homestar Runner and All Your Base. For people who don't know, because we do have some younger fans, All Your Base basically was an early internet meme based on the fact that there was this game for Sega that had been really badly translated.
Yeah, it's called Zero Wing.
Zero Wing. And so the localization, basically, they had made the dialogue just make no sense. And it doesn't really sound very tolerant, but the term people would use was English, was like badly translated English in East Asian countries. There was just a website called English.com that you could go to get examples of this. This was just an example of that where it kind of went early viral. But I'm just thinking, because then by 2008, 2009, you have like viral YouTubes. Like you have the redneck mad about Obama banning dip that was popular enough that it got referenced in an episode of South Park, which I mean, like, I'm not exactly the world's biggest South Park fan, but it's a major network cable show.
Mm-hmm.
And so this kid in like Kentucky was like, this fucking Obama's going to ban flavored dip. I'm like, this fucking gay, y'all. He needs to be impeached. And the fact that he's constantly like clearing his throat and making these horrible hawking sounds, and like, so in the South Park episode, Cartman is like this guy and doing all this, like the gross throat noises and shit. The fact that there was that kind of currency, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird to see that progression. And then it's like, I don't know, that you start the decade with like playing Snake on a Nokia phone is cool as hell because you at least have a cell phone. And
yeah.
If you're a teenager like we were, like that was, it wasn't ubiquitous. And then, by the end of the decade, iPhones are out. Like I went to school before there were smartphones. Like I graduated school, and then the summer after I graduated school, iPhones came out. And like, so the whole time I was in college, if we texted, it was like on flip phones or brick phones and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So interesting stuff.
Good stuff. All right, let's do a dad chat question. We'll go ahead and close ourselves out here. This one, I think, is going to be mostly for you with a new child. Are there any musical instruments that children should be banned from learning in the home? Anything that you're going to say, no, little child, you cannot pick up that set of bagpipes?
It's funny because it's the one that I know that I had as a kid, recorder.
Oh, really?
Look, here's the thing.
I mean, it's a good thing to learn the basics on.
You don't learn the basics on it. Like if you do it in school and they're practicing, you're playing, great. But like oftentimes it's just, no, I need a recorder for school. And then you have this thing at home and you don't know how to play it. So you just make horrible noise on it.
Yeah. Well, you could teach your child how to rock the recorder, probably.
Yeah, I could figure it out, the scales and stuff, and then teach her how to play
I
it.
feel like for you, though, your child will be around more musical instruments.
I really hope we have a way of letting her, if he wants to play drums, letting her play drums, because that's something I always wished I could have done, and I just wasn't able to. My parents would never in a million years have gotten me a drum kit for noise reasons alone, and they're expensive. And so when I see these videos of like, 5-year-old drummer playing with Lenny Kravitz, rocking the fuck out, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I kind of wish I probably would have gotten into drums enough to have been willing to do that. So I don't know, band.
I can't say anything for us because we bought our kid an accordion at one point. You could buy like a $35 accordion for kids, and she was into it for a little bit, but she didn't stick with it, which is fine because it's an accordion. She does Irish dance now, though, so she sees accordions all the time, but thankfully she's never just been like, no, I need the big thing that makes all the noise in the house.
But
now.
If she learns it, then she can play parody polkas of pop songs and have someone drum on the accordion case, and she can go on Dr. Demento's show and then become Weird Al Yankovic too.
Really, really showing your age there with some Dr. Demento. We actually, do you remember the Star Trekkin' song from Dr. Demento?
I didn't actually listen to Dr. Demento.
I just across the universe.
Just watched the VH1 behind the music on Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh yeah.
That's all. And I just knew about Dr. Demento. Just the fact that this was a thing on radio in LA at the time is just a funny thing to me.
Dr. Demento was a big part of my parody song upbringing before him and because Weird Al Yankovic's been doing that shit for decades at this point.
But because also it's like now radio shows are like, you're listening to Tiger and the Gooch. And it's like, yeah, it just was a different time. No, I never listened to that though. But I also, it's just because my parents wouldn't listen to it, and also they didn't play it on AFN.
Yeah.
And then we were, all over the place around the world. So
my dad listened to classical music and my mom listened to 60s oldies. So I had to break, like, I have a really deep appreciation for music from the 60s and classical music, but it took a while for me to break into modern music on my own.
It's very funny because I need to listen to it, but there's a 90s country music podcast called Take This Pod and Shove It. And I just happened to notice that they have done episodes about 90s country songs that I like, because my parents got rid of all of their, I don't know why, but they got rid of all their old stuff and just got country music in the sort of like class of 89 Garth Brooks, era. And so there are some songs now in retrospect that I'm like, no, these are actually kind of bangers. Like they're actually legit good.
Yeah. 90s country wasn't bad. 9/11 really ruined country music. Add that to the list of things 9/11 ruined.
That's why Osama bin Laden was basically retired in Abbottabad, because he's like, well, I ruined country music. So, I accomplished.
Well, he destroyed country music specifically for me. He didn't destroy it for people who love country music, because they love that. They love that patriotic finger banging shit. So
it's basically the Shania Twain model, except it's like pop music with steel guitars. Like, I got a truck and a vote Republican. And it's just like, yeah, it's stupid. I don't know. I mean, that stuff wasn't great. Like it certainly, but I mean, you had more variety, and a lot of it was about being a drunk piece of shit and having facing up to the fact that you've ruined all of your relationships. Also, like Garth Brooks wrote an emphatically queer, positive, and pro-environmentalist song in 1993, 2 or 3, I think, a song called "We Shall Be Free," and like CMT banned the video because it was too woke in 1990.
Too gay. Too woke.
No, he literally just said, when we're free to love anyone we choose in the song. It's a great song, and it's like impossible to find because, if I'm not mistaken, like his music is not easily accessible online. But I was thinking, because this I need to listen to these episodes, but they did an episode about the Winona Judd song "No One Else on Earth," which banger. They did a song about the Lori Morgan song "Watch Me," also banger. Songs that I liked as a kid and I didn't really appreciate. I just liked them, and now having heard them as an adult, I'm like, no, these are actually legit good songs. Like,
you know what? Garth Brooks was really good on the Muppet Show too, like Muppets Tonight back in the 90s. I don't know if you ever watched that.
No, I don't think so. But I never really watched the Muppets in general.
No, you weren't a Muppet kid?
No, I watched like early Nickelodeon stuff like Eureka's Castle. And then I obviously watched like, this is so stupid. Long story short, I saw a thing on Instagram of Stevie Wonder in the early 70s on Soul Train, sort of like improving a theme song for Soul Train. And it was like, damn, this dude is such a good performer. I know of him, obviously, and I've heard some of his songs, but I never really paid attention. Which led me to watching him perform Superstition on Sesame Street in 1973. And it's like one of the best live recordings I've ever heard. genuinely insane. And I was like, this is nuts. Well, then was like, okay, I should try to learn how to play some of these songs. And like, they're not hard in principle, but they are, because it's Stevie Wonder. Anyway, the thing about it is that in that era, he was using a clavinet, which is like was designed to be like a digital harpsichord or like an electronic harpsichord. It's got a very distinct sound. It's like the sort of 70s funk keyboard sound. Anyway, what I realized was if you try to play a Stevie Wonder song and you're too like on the one, like rhythmic, you don't have the kind of swing that he's got to it. It just sounds like the DuckTales theme song. It just sounds like but then I listened to the DuckTales theme song and I'm like, actually, this is also kind of a banger.
It is.
Yeah.
The DuckTales song, like 90s cartoon theme songs.
80s. That was full on 80s, man.
Oh, it was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, 90s would be like Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers or The Rescuers. Or The Rescuers were the movie series. What was the other one?
Tailspin?
Tailspin. Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I got so off topic. But the reason I brought up music was just because I was thinking to myself as a closeout question, is there music like beyond the obvious reasons that you either would emphatically want your daughter to listen to, you know, say before double digits, or would emphatically not want her to listen to?
I don't know, because like her musical influences come from the radio show that we listen to, Kids Place Live on Sirius XM, and that gives her access to a lot of music that, you know, I listen to, but also that I wouldn't have any access to because it's, you know, family friendly music that's played. So there's really nothing that, like, I have a friend who cannot listen to Fine Young Cannibals because his family played on road trips. His parents listened to Fine Young Cannibals all the time, and he can't fucking stand them. And I understand that. I don't have anything like that. There are things that I wish she was more into that she's not into, but that's kind of on me. Like, she likes the Beastie Boys, and I could have her listen to more Beastie Boys, but she's got her own taste, and I'm letting that kind of flourish. But there's nothing that I'm just like, please don't play this god-awful music around me, because other than the Hamster Dance song, which she also hates, like, that's about it.
That's another internet, well, it's kind of 90s internet meme, is it? You know what's funny is I seem to recall this just as a random thing about Beastie Boys, looking around at stuff. There was a song where I was trying to figure out how they produced something. It was literally a Janet Jackson song, is Love Will Never Do Without You, which my daughter loves, and I realize now, like, musically is an absolute banger. And there's a line and one of the things that I think they may have used in programming it is a SB12, which is a old drum machine. And I remember the line in Putting Shame in Your Game in the Beastie Boys song about on the Benihana Chef on the SB12, chop the fuck out, the beats left on the shelf. And it's like, well, that's a funny line, but you know, I don't necessarily think it's child appropriate. No. Earlier in that song, there's a line where he says, well, I'm the king of Boggle, there is none higher. I got 11 points off the word quagmire. And it was like, that's really funny. Like, that's such a good line. Oh man. So yeah, you know, I'd let my daughter listen to the Beastie Boys. I might not let her, I might not play Girls for her, but I might play some of the more, once they became less of a hardcore band and more of a hip hop group, you know. Yeah. So yeah, you know what? We're at over an hour, and I know you've got a full day ahead of you, but Francis, it's absolutely wonderful speaking with you. And to all the listeners, thank you for listening. And if you want to support the show, we have a Patreon that goes all the way back to 2017. with bonus content, and it's $5 a month, gets you all of it. And Francis can fill you in on some of the other tiers and what they offer in terms of benefits.
I did just release our latest Deadliest Warrior. This one is ninjas versus Spartans, and it only gets dumber from here, folks. Don't worry. So that recently came out. That's at the $5 level. At the $10 level, we have quarterly care packages that go out. You get stickers, patches, pins, things like that. Whatever I kind of have floating around. New designs before anybody else has them. That's at the $10 level. And you're always free to give us even more money than that, too, if you just love us. So feel free.
Talking about 2000s vibe, you talking about Deadliest Warrior, ninjas versus Spartans, and I got this intense heartbreak, like the feeling you got when you found the first scratch on an iPod. Mm-hmm. Just, ugh. Anyway, thank you again for being a listener. And Francis, talk to you soon.
Take care, y'all.